Uh, Hi, everyone. So excited to be here, especially with my good friends Dave and Carl. Carl's a newbie today, so first round on our show at least. And Dave's an old veteran in more ways than just the show. Not really as old as most people would think as far as when we talk old veterans. So maybe that was a miscue, but it's okay. I forgive myself. And with that said, like I say, the word of the day is inspire. Carl, since you're new, why don't you give a brief introduction and your first thoughts on inspire?
Sure. Thank you, Don, and wonderful to work with you, Dave, as well. So, my name is Carl Hebenstreit. I am a leadership development executive coach, organization development consultant, team development consultant, and I am working in the realm of, hopefully, I'm working in the realm of inspiration to inspire people to be better versions of themselves. And yeah, inspire is an amazing word. I think there's a lot of energy behind it. And I think when you look at the definition of it, which also involves breathing, it's like breathing in, right? So I think that breath, I think, is so important for not only creating energy, but also creating space and creating a pause, even a pause to really think about what you're going to do. I think there's a lot of self-reflection around this, whatever is inspirational to someone, whatever they perceive as inspirational. And I think it's very unique and custom and different to different people. So something may be inspiring to someone, but it may not be inspiring to someone else. But then they take that customization, right? And they say, how is this going to inspire me? Or it is inspiring me to take an action or to look at things a different way or have a different belief or expand my worldview, whatever it is. It's that inspiration. I think that's really the breath part of it. I think is a really intriguing and interesting component that is really important.
Well, great way to get us to lift off. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave. Dave can bring everybody up to a little bit of scratch. And love to hear what your initial thoughts on Inspire is, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Don. It's nice to have Carl here as well. And so you can tell from my background, I'm a little bit in a different location. I'm up in Virginia Beach, my old hometown, before I moved a couple months ago. But having a great time up here, getting to see my daughter is, even for a few minutes here and there, is a wonderful thing during school weeks. I really don't know what else to say beyond what Carl just said, because he has just kicked it right out of the park. And I think he's fit in right where Jason would have with the inspiration and the breathing. It's a great analogy or a great connection to make there, because we don't think about the connection with words and what they really mean and how they can be connected there. But inspiration to me is, how does somebody, and to build on what you said, Carl, how does somebody help somebody grow beyond what their normal means are, what their normal methods would have been? Inspiration, we think we can just take a deep breath and that's it. But if we practice, we can get bigger. Our lungs can expand and we can get stronger. And that's how we inspire people, is we're getting them to get bigger and better than what they thought they could be going into whatever discussion or situation they're about to enter. We can inspire them to go beyond their limiting beliefs, if you will. And that's what great leaders do, is they inspire their subordinates, their peers, their people around them, to go beyond their perceived mental limitations. Sometimes those are physical, but really it all comes back to the mind and how the mind controls the body. We can go beyond our expectations.
Yeah. With that said, you guys really put it in a great foundation for the rest of the show. To me, inspire is having people do or think things they wouldn't have without you. So you made a difference, and you kind of, when you look at inspire and you put it together, you've got spire, which is usually the top of a building. And to inspire is to lift people or raise people up to a higher level. And, I think that's so important. And in this chaotic world we live in, peer to peer is so important these days, to be supportive and build foundation. And there's also mutual inspiration. right? Just because someone's providing doesn't mean they're not also receiving by the gift of the response and the gift of the gift that they provide in what they say and what they do to others. And it ripples. And I think, especially with social media, what we're saying today will affect so many people on the air today, but also will continue to inspire people on YouTube and LinkedIn who see this in the future. Right now, my videos have gotten over 40,000 views, and I haven't done anything to promote them. I just want to introduce Carrie. Carrie's been here since the cows came home, and he has his joke of the day. Why do cows have hooves instead of feet? They lactose. I guess lactose. Okay, we'll go along with the hooves. Carrie also says hello to both of you. And also, that's what I hope to have, a leader to inspire me. I've only had bosses when I was working. Well, that's a different way of approaching things. You know, what's given is not always what should be received. And sometimes you can pluck a really good nugget out of something that by itself wouldn't have seemed like a very important thing, but you never know when you're going to touch somebody in a way that's going to help them make the positive change they may be looking for. So swinging it back to Carl, what's your new thoughts on everything me and Dave just said?
Well, I'm going to exactly what you just last said. I think that's really the important piece is you never know when you're going to impact someone. And I think that there are so many people out there that go out there and, to Carrie's point, think that they're being inspirational leaders or good leaders, or that they are engaging and motivating their teams, when in reality they're not. And I think inspiration is even more powerful when it's not intentional. So it's just your natural, authentic self doing something, and you may not have any intention of having an impact on somebody else or showing people how to do something, but someone else may pick up on even a tiny little piece of your actions, and that may click for them, and that may be more meaningful to them than you ever imagined. And I think each of us has had a situation like that, where someone years later has come to you and said, oh, when you gave me that talk, when you said that word, or you used that phrase, or you told that story, that made such a big impact on me. It changed my life. It made me think of things differently. It made me understand things better, or look through a different lens. And I think that's the unintentional inspiration by really tapping into your authenticity and being who you authentically are. And that's what's going to appeal and engage people and inspire them to take action that you may never have even imagined or intended.
Wonderful share there, Carl. Appreciate it. Dave?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, Carl. And I'm going to take the other side of this is, you know, your point, if I'm hearing this correctly, is the person being inspirational to somebody. I want to talk about the receiving it. You've got to be open to being inspired as well. Like you said, Don, at the very beginning, it's a give and take. It's a gift for a gift. We can both give and get at the same time, and we don't even have to know it. But it comes back to mindset. Do I want to be inspired? Am I looking for inspiration, or am I waiting for it to just come to me? Yeah. If we take a more positive mindset, we're going to find the little things in life will inspire us, will get us moving in the right direction, instead of waiting for here's this grandiose, exciting event that happened and I'm inspired. Because like motivation, that quick inspiration can vanish just as fast as it happened. It's a discipline that will keep you going and positive to look for inspiration. I remember something silly, and I go back to my military days, right after 9/11. You know, President Bush came on and he had some great speeches. I remember looking at one of my shipmates. I was in class in Dahlgren, Virginia for some Aegis training, weapons training. And I said, well, that really didn't hit me too hard. He goes, give it a few minutes, give it a few days. And sure enough, you know, if we look at those speeches that he gave, those little nuggets became positive, inspirational quotes that motivated not just the military force to take action, but the nation to come together, because we started looking for them. We weren't initially, immediately motivated to go, hey, we're going to go get these guys. nope, it took some time to really weed through and be open to being inspired by those words. Not to be jingoistic or militaristic, just, hey, that's just a case in point where I wasn't really initially inspired by those words, but it took me some time and I realized I get his point now. I'm with him.
Well, you make a great point there, Dave. And one is sometimes you don't need the whole ball of wax. You just need that element that fits together with where you're at and where you want to be. And that can, fulfill you. The other element when we're talking about inspire, and we've been spending, most of the time, which is traditional, on people who inspire you. But nature can inspire you. You can inspire you. Music can inspire you. So there's so many different aspects of inspiration that you don't need to wait to get in front of to be part of a big audience to a wonderful, inspiring speaker. Look at the sky, take time. Being in the present is inspiring because the past is really a challenge for some people, and the future is a big unknown and can be an anxiety to most people. So if you can center yourself, and actually, you can't fill a jar until you open it. And, until you're ready for something that, the quote is, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. Right? The teacher's always there. It's just waiting for you to say, I need something. I'm looking for something. I could use something. And then you're, just like if you bought a Ford today, pretty soon you see Fords all over the road. Right? And until you do that, they're all on the road, but because you don't have one and you're not focused on one, it becomes a blur to you. Well, we're lucky to have Omar with us coming through YouTube. Hi, Omar. Omar's been very prodigious in all of his activities, travels around the world, has been on this show many times. I've been on every one of his shows, and he's got 3 different shows, which is Do We Really Know Them? And also he does Zoom Party, which is a takeoff on Jeopardy. And I've been on the show. My grandson's been on the show. Does a lot for kids, and actually full time he's a tutor for a lot of young kids. So welcome, Omar. Never see enough of you, but are always appreciate when we do. One of Omar's biggest fans, and after 900 shows here, you get to meet a lot of people who are motivated towards the visual as well as the audio. So moving right back to Carl, what's your thoughts now?
So you both mentioned openness, and I think that's a critical component because no one can be inspired if they think they know it all already, right? So they're closed. If they have a fixed mindset and they say, I have everything I need right now, I don't need to learn anything else, I don't need to have any new perspectives or new ways of thinking about things. I have everything I need, and the world should basically go around me and revolve around me and my thoughts, right? So that's the extreme, the total extreme on the spectrum of being closed versus being open. And I have a thought, I've had a thought about why people might be so closed. And I really want to challenge this notion of the golden rule that we've always been taught. We've been taught the golden rule, and I think that really is hurting people. And it's hurting people because the golden rule would work 100% of the time if everyone were exactly the same. If we all were identical backgrounds, identical ideologies, identical values, identical principles, identical politics, identical religions, whatever. If we were all exactly the same, absolutely the golden rule would work because it's treat others the way that you want to be treated. But the reality is not everyone wants to be treated the way you want to be treated. And that's when you're closed off, when you think that everyone wants to be treated the way that you do. So you're closing the door to inspiration, you're closing the door to growth. And I think adopting a much more expansive worldview of treating others the way that they want to be treated is now opening you up to become even more inspired by them, by their experiences, empathizing with what they're doing, taking things that you may not have thought made sense, or maybe you never even thought about it because it was not part of your own worldview, and now expanding and integrating other people's experiences and ways of thinking and ways of perceiving things into your own, and therefore you're becoming more open and expansive and integrating in your worldview. So I think that exactly what you're talking about, that being open to other perspectives, other people's experiences, is going to help you in becoming a better person and being inspired by them, as long as you take it in and you integrate it and you work it in and expand your own worldview. So I think that openness is critical.
Yeah, great, valuable perspective and share there. Dave?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, Carl, and it's something that I've struggled with passing on to my own children and to other, kids in my neighborhood. I bring up, or my old neighborhood, as I've brought up many times before on the show. We get into this closed-minded loop of my world is only within this 3-mile radius, if you will, or 5-mile radius, when there's so much more going on beyond us. And as you pointed out, Don, it's about nature as well. Nature is not stagnant. So why would a human be? We have to grow. We have to get beyond those 5-mile radii, if you will, or circumference, whatever you want to call it, and explore the world. And I've been fortunate that I've seen, I'll call it a third of the world, almost half, or more than half. I don't know, whatever it is. And seen different. I was just having a conversation yesterday. I was talking to a lady at a restaurant from Bulgaria. I'd been to Bulgaria. I didn't tell her I never got ashore. We just anchored off, but I had a connection with somebody, and it inspired me to keep talking. And then we learned from each other. So if we're not, to your point, Carl, if we're not open to seeing what else is out there, we're never going to be inspired. We're never going to get beyond that 3-mile radius. We're never going to grow beyond thinking we know it all. That when you started talking, Carl, the first thing that went through my mind was, I just had this conversation this week, was I hate the word expert. And I don't like using the word hate. But I really do not like that word because it assumes that you have all the knowledge. And if you have all the knowledge, then you don't need anybody else in your life and you're never going to get anywhere. But if you have that 1/10 of 1% that says, I still don't know enough, then you're open somewhere to learning and growing. And that's part of what we started with inspiration is growing beyond what we know, strengthening what we do know maybe, but growing beyond what we already do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that relates to not wanting to be the smartest person in the room, right? And the other thing is, for things to change, you have to change. Outside things can't change you. It can affect you and impact you, but it's your choice how you perceive, how you accept, and then how you integrate it into your behaviors, into your thought process. And the key to inspire is it's continuous. You don't just get inspired one time and never need it again. It's not like an inoculation of some sort. It's actually something that once you're comfortable with, and I think Carl made the point, it becomes natural and consistent, right? How do you maintain your inspiration, motivation? There's a lot of exchangeable words there. And the key is the joy of learning, the joy of growing, the joy of being more dynamic, a little bit where you surprise yourself, where you push the envelope a little, because, a lot of people are afraid of falling out a window until they find out they've been on the first floor all the time, right? And the fear of what could happen doesn't really match the reality of what is happening. And too many people talk themselves out of things, procrastinate. The main thing is confrontation in a good way, embracing things in a positive way, and walking away feeling like, it wasn't just me, which is great, because if it's just you, there's not enough you around to make a difference. But if you can attach to something, or, copying is the purest form of flattery. People who have to admit that, hey, that person's idea makes a lot more sense than mine, I'll accept it. Versus how many people are sitting there on the defensive, wanting to argue, wanting to influence people in a wrong way, which I think that Carl's point was, and we talked about that on the phone, is the platinum rule. Doing for others as they want done unto themselves, right? You might like chocolate ice cream, but doesn't mean everybody else does. And it's much easier to say, what would be your preference versus making that assumption. I know what you want. I know what you need. How many people think they're doing you a favor when they don't even let you share what it is that you're dealing with? It's like name that tune, and they're trying to do it in like three seconds. Versus, like in Wheel of Fortune, buy some vowels before you try to solve the puzzle. Get a little bit more insight. If I ever got on that show, I'd buy every vowel I could before I even think about it. Why? Because it's better to do it right than to do it fast and then have to change it or have to defend it. And too much time and energy is wasted on things that, give people credit for being intelligent, even though you may not appreciate it or understand it. So, Carl.
No, I love what you're saying there, Don, because it's really about not doing it by yourself. And I think that's where leaders get into trouble, because leaders think that the reason they're leaders is because they can do it all by themselves. They were promoted into a level of leadership because of their wonderful individual contributor achievements and their expertise and their excellence and their talents. And therefore, they know how to do everything. And therefore, that's what's going to make them a great leader. And they don't spend the time to learn from and be inspired by their teams, the people that report up to them. So they think that they have to do it all themselves. And to your point earlier, they burn themselves out. They can't do it all by themselves. No one can do it all by him or herself or themselves. It's just impossible. And no one has all the answers. No one, back to Dave's point, no one is an expert, because we're constantly learning. The rules are always changing. There's always new information that's coming out, new research that debunks previous knowledge and things that we thought were facts and true. So it's really being, again, going back to open to bringing others' perspectives and others' help and others' contributions in, because we cannot do it by ourselves. And again, that's, I think, one of the biggest learnings for leaders and organizations, that they have to trust that the other people that are on their teams that they hired for their own expertise and for their own backgrounds and histories and amazing things that they've done before, that's going to continue and expand and grow. And they need to learn from that as well. They need to be inspired by their people just as much as they need to be inspirational to them.
Yeah, so true. Dave?
Yeah, and I want to build on what you said there, Carl, because I think that in order to be inspired as a leader, what I found is, and I go back to In Search of Excellence, one of the best management books from the 80s that still I have an original copy on my shelf back home, that leadership, or in their case, they call it management by walking around. And too many leaders think, to your point, Carl, they know it all or they can do it all. And they hold themselves up at their desk and they make some phone calls and they say, my team is doing great work. Help me help you. But they don't really understand what could be done better, differently, because they've never left that office. So get up and walk around. That in of itself will potentially, or could, give the inspiration for someone to walk up to you and say, I have an idea. Or you can come to them and say, what are your ideas? Tell me. Being open, again, that word open to change, open to not criticism, but new ideas of what could be done better, what could be done differently. That will inspire you as the leader to further go back and ask them, and inspire them to come to you or to lead the way you lead by getting around. I always found it troubling with leadership in the Navy that I called it the ivory tower leadership. It took one admiral that I worked not for, but directly, but I had to go through. I was a one echelon below him, if you will. But the rumor was, and it wasn't even a rumor, I guess. I mean, I witnessed it once, was it took 5 doors to get to him. If you didn't make it through the first door, you weren't getting beyond anywhere. And you had to satisfy that person. Well, that person had no leadership decision-making authority. He just was controlling who got to the boss. So when the boss went on the press, went on his trips around the theater, he was putting out bad information. It was not inspirational because all of us down below, lower echelons than I was at, we knew he was full of it because he didn't have all the information. So if he had gotten out like his predecessor had done and walked around without notice ahead of time so that we could all prepare our crib notes and say, this is what we got to tell the boss, he could have gotten real information. And I had one director of the NSA who a lot of us, his brashness of doing just that, not announcing, torqued off a lot of people. But I can tell you what, he got the facts and inspired people to come forth with the truth rather than just telling them the party line of the office. And that will inspire people to want to work harder, smarter, and beyond what you've asked. And it's those little itty bitty things that make a difference. So I've piled on with leadership a little bit, maybe a little away from inspiration, but it has a tie because we have to network. And I've said before, Don, you know, on this show, it's not about clicking like on a LinkedIn. Even these are networking where we're physically not in the same room, but we can at least see each other and emote from each other. That is how we inspire people, is by connecting. And that will make things happen further down the road.
Yeah, so true. And, you know, when you look at it, how you present yourself is how you present your availability and access. And if people are kind of, you know, standoffish, or they don't meet people at the same level, right? It's hard to have an honest conversation when someone signs your paycheck, when someone is responsible for your promotion or your success. And what that lends itself is dilution of your character at times, your values, your principles. And at a certain point, you have to appreciate, where is this leading you as a person, right? Are you starting to be somebody you don't want to be, but it helps you get to where you want to be? So there's definitely opportunities for conflict. You know, it's a trade-off. I give this up and I get this. And, you know, at a certain point, who really cares about what I think as much as what I think of them or what I can help them with? So there's a trade-off that always comes to be. And if it's a peer-to-peer, you're on equal footing, right? If someone asks for something, you can share, well, here's how I feel about it. And if we were to make an adjustment, I can accept it. So there is a level of integrity that's involved with inspiration, not only giving it, but accepting it. But the other thing is, unless it's continuous, consistent, and sustainable, it's a one-off. How many people go to these wonderful, inspiring conferences and they're on cloud nine? And then about a week or two later, it just fades away and nothing happens from it. And they continue to do the same thing, as opposed to use it as a platform, you know, to launch from. Carl?
I think what you're talking about is integrating it into your current life, your current work, your current situation, your current relationships. So just going to a conference, being inspired by a keynote speaker or a workshop or whatever it is, and then doing nothing with it because life gets busy and you just forget about it, because now you're back in yet catching up on all those emails and catching up on all the meetings that you missed and communications that you didn't read. Everything that you learned is just gone. And finding a way to integrate that, whatever inspired you, into your work, life, relationships, whatever it is what's missing. Because again, you mentioned at the top of the show that we're in a very, very wild ride of busyness in our lives right now. There's a lot going on, and things are taking priority that we need to look at, and maybe not look at ourselves and our own well-being and our own goals, really, in rather than being in survival mode, which I think a lot of people are in right now. So I think goals is probably an interesting way that we can look at inspiration, because I'm wondering if people set goals for themselves and then those goals get set aside because of life, and then something inspires them to remind them that, oh, I had this goal and I could use this little tidbit of wisdom or inspiration to help me get back on track because I forgot about it because life got in the way. And I guess the other question I would have is, does inspiration create new goals? Maybe they were unconscious goals that people had, but they never really realized that they wanted to do. And then something inspires them to say, yeah, I did want to write that book. Oh, I did want to apply for that job because that was another interesting way to get my career in a different direction, or whatever it is. So yeah, I'd like your thoughts on where goals come into play with inspiration. Is it an aftermath, or is it something that's there all along?
Yeah, good point, Dave.
Sorry, mute there. Sorry. Yeah, it's very interesting, Carl. I'm making the furrowed face there because I almost want to say it's a yin and yang, that one drives the other, and which one comes first is almost immaterial. Because when we're younger, our inspiration drives our aspirations. But as we get older, maybe our aspirations change, so the goals change.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. That's why I say yin and yang.
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
a maturing process that as we go through this quote circle of life, if we expect that our goals and aspirations as a child are going to remain the same 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, we've misunderstood the process.
Yeah.
So goals and aspirations are not interchangeable, but interlinked and drive the other. I go to my own story real quick. Is I always wanted to be a pilot, naval aviator, eventually like Top Gun. But then I realized, no, it's not going to happen. I've got some other issues. I had asthma diagnosis as a kid. No, that's not going to let you be a pilot. But I really wanted to be in the Navy. So my aspiration really was to be a pilot. And I still love aviation. I'm in the master jet base capital here in Virginia Beach on the East Coast, but I still wanted to join the Navy. There was something bigger. I was inspired by what the Navy presented. So my goals changed from aviation to cryptology, which my dad did. So I was inspired by him, and it affected my goal. But
yeah.
And then as I've gone through my post-naval career, I was in cybersecurity, and then I got, you've always liked investigations. So my goal and aspiration, it kind of played off of each other through this process. So I think the word goal tied to inspiration, aspiration is very, very prescient. It does have a tie-in that you bring up.
Yeah, well, I guess what you bring up, Dave, is connection. And a lot of times your background, the people who influenced you, will give you a predisposition to certain types of inspiration, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you were brought up in a very lenient, open environment versus a very punitive, disciplinary environment, you're probably going to be a little bit more dependent on people's direction or advice. Where if you've been a self-starter, a self-motivated person, I think that makes a difference. The other thing is, how generous are you to allow people to share what they feel is important without taking it importantly, right? It might be given that way, but it doesn't need to be accepted. And some people go into a lot of gyrations and poses and when they present it instead of getting right to the point. So you got to kind of go through the fluff to some extent.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to ask questions, right? I'm a little confused. I mean, I get most of what you're saying, but I don't quite get it all. Or I think the other key question is not what was said, but why it was said. I hear your words. What were you intending with those words? What was I supposed to take away? And some people aren't even aware of what they just said, because some people just say whatever comes to their mind and they're just an open book. And other people are really interested in understanding. And I think people who appreciate other people's questions have to look at it like they're helping me, right? They're exposing something, they're bringing something to the surface, where a lot of times, I mean, a lot of professional people, doctors, lawyers, as soon as you question something, it's like, well, why are you here if you're so smart? Or why do you have to know? There was that saying, somebody goes to a doctor and the doctor says, take an aspirin. And they say, how does it work? And the doctor says, swallow it, right? You don't have to know the chemicals and the interactions and who you could if you're that focused on it. But I think to preface what you say helps too. I mentioned, I was at a speaker and person says, how many people say thank you when simple things are done for you? And most time you're just mindless. You travel through life in a blur. And they say, don't just say thank you. Tell the person what you're thanking them for. You get off a plane, you could say thank you, but you could say thank you for a safe flight. Thank you for making it a comfortable flight. Well, that sticks with people, because I know in my businesses in the past, the irate customer always takes front and center in your mind, right? The person who lost their mind, start jumping up and down and disrupting things. You could have 100 great customers and they fade away to that one. And again, it's your choosing. Why did you take that as the example of today? And the other thing I'll say, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how fast you get up, right? And sometimes just getting up as soon as you fall down gets you back on your feet. Too many people pay twice. They go through a bad experience and then they feel guilty and ashamed or embarrassed forever about it. And it was a one-time deal, and they use the exception as the rule. And that can be very stifling. Avoiding trouble gets people in a lot more trouble instead of dealing with it and addressing it and getting over it. Carl.
No, I think that you're absolutely on point with everything you've said about that. Usually what we're trying to avoid is what we end up creating. So we're trying to avoid conflict or trouble, and then we end up creating it by not addressing it up front and sooner rather than later. So it becomes even bigger or worse if you just let it fester and grow and go unnoticed and undealt with. The other thing that was clicking for me as you were speaking was the connection between that thank you for, right? The thank you for. And I think that can be inspirational. It can tell the person that's receiving the appreciation what inspired you. Like, thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this. This was an inspirational level of service, an inspirational level of safety, an inspirational level of new ideas, or whatever it is. Because if you are the recipient of a thank you, you don't know what resonated, what landed. So having that knowledge with just the simple thank you for, which is authentic, right? Again, getting back into authenticity. If it's just a blanket thank you, how authentic is that? What are you really thanking them for? What was so different and exemplary? So I really think that's a very key point for inspiring the person that's receiving the compliment to see how they were inspirational, or what they role modeled that was so important for the recipient, for the person that's giving you the appreciation. And the other thing I was thinking about is, you mentioned something about different people being inspired by different things, right? And I think that's totally related to motivation, our motivations and what we're looking at. Are we looking at all the Fords on the road, and that's what's now motivating us because we have a Ford, as you were talking earlier? And I think that as you were saying that, it clicked for me that you can't be everything to everyone, as we've mentioned earlier. You can't know everything. You're always going to keep learning and growing. And even if you're trying as a leader to be inspirational, you can't inspire everyone with the same message. And I think, Dave, you were saying that earlier about the messaging after 9/11. It wasn't inspirational to everyone at the same time. Different people are it's going to click for different people at different times. Different messages are going to land for people at different times in different ways. And I think that's really important to highlight, because if leaders are thinking that part of what their reason for existing as a leader is to be inspirational to everyone, they're going to have to change their messaging. They're going to have to provide different stories, different ways, focus on different aspects that will land with different people. This was back in 2024, there was a Samsung Galaxy launch, the cell phone. And it was fascinating to me to dial in and listen to the marketing. Basically, it was a marketing call, and to see how many different messages they were saying in their marketing that would appeal to different people's areas of focus, right? Some people would focus on the connection. How does this going to connect me with other people? Some people would focus on the data and the ability to access the internet. Some people are going to focus on speed and the reliability. Some people are going to focus on how pretty it is. Some people are going to focus on how wonderful the pictures are going to be. So they were inspiring different potential buyers, with different messaging, rather than just one thing. This is the best cell phone, go buy it. People aren't going to do that. But if they're going to tap into that why, and they're going to look at the different reasons, they're probably going to hit every single person out there on that call with their different messaging. And different people will remember different things. And it's going to be fascinating to so the whole thing about, what is this? Is it a snake? Is it a tree? No, it's an elephant, because you didn't look at the whole picture, right? But they're going to focus on different specific elements of it that are going to land for them, that are going to be important for them. And they're all going to leave inspired, and they're all going to say it was an inspirational speech or launch for different reasons. And that's okay. As long as we've inspired them to do something and create something new, create something different, create something that's going to be appealing to everyone, that's fantastic.
Yeah, great points. Dave?
Yeah, I think as you're talking, Carl, the leader who wants to be known as inspirational is probably missing the mark, because he's trying to be inspirational to everybody at the same time is not going to be a winner. And how many times do we really remember those leaders? And I'll tie back to what you said earlier, Don. You said that we listen to what is said, not often why it is said. Mm-hmm. And that got me to write a quick note of emotion, to your point, Carl, as well. What do we emotionally connect with? And there's a couple points here. What do we take away from it? And then how do we respond to it? Are we going to respond with an emotional response to just go, I'm inspired by that emotion that I held on to for a few minutes, and then it wanes away? Or am I going to be inspired because it ties to something that I have had in my life before, a goal, an aspiration? It's going to inspire me to respond to that longer term. Emotion is a big part of inspiration, is my point. And if we're not emotionally tied, like Carl was saying, to a specific marketing ploy or wording, then we're gonna ignore it. It's just not going to be worthy of our attention long term. As we look at the gym and all these coaches, for gym memberships, of discipline beats motivation. Well, the same thing. I mean, emotion and inspiration are going to last based on what we are really tied to. What are our goals? If I'm not really into going to the gym, my discipline's going to wane, and I'm not going to go, no matter how motivated I get from watching a guy do 100 pull-ups or run a marathon in 1 hour, 59 minutes, breaking the record. That inspiration will die. The motivation will die. So it really, bringing it back again to what we said in the very beginning of how do we take the inspiration longer term, it depends on our emotions, a good portion of it, and how it ties to what our goals are. I really love this conversation today, though.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is that sustainability. And too many people try to do too much, too fast with too little and get disappointed.
Yeah.
You know, you want to lose 30 pounds in 2 days, not going to happen unless you do something really dramatic or desperate. And having fun makes a difference. And having a sense of humor makes a difference, right? I mean, because someone could say something and they're waiting on your response. If you're not affected, they just failed. If their motivation was intimidation or if their motivation was self-interest. When you say, no, I don't buy that, or just from your facial expression, right? They say 50% of what you communicate is through your body language. Only 20% is what you say. So it's how you say it and how you appear. And sometimes you look and say right off the bat, when you start to get to know or introduce yourself to somebody, this is going to be trouble, right? If you want to take a return back, and you can just tell how their posture is, how their attitude is. Dave?
Don, you had made a comment earlier about to the point of emotions and how we present ourselves. And I remember very, very, very fondly of one of the girls that worked for me coming up to me a couple of years later saying, Dave, or Mr. Snell, whatever she said at the time, I was senior rank to her, said, you know, when I first met you, you were a real jackass. I didn't really know what to think of you. But as I got to know you, I realized that you're a really nice guy. And it was the presentation, because I was being beaten up by my bosses. I was down. But when we'd go out, I'd be a little bit happier. And over time, she realized, hey, Dave is a happy guy, but he's getting beaten up. What do we got to do? You know, so it's really how we present ourselves that will have a long-term effect. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. And I want to introduce Catherine, who's here from New Mexico. And I've known Catherine from a long time on LinkedIn. And Catherine actually was instrumental in introducing me to Carl and having Carl on the show. So thank you very much, Catherine. Wonderful individual, somebody I would really look forward to connecting with if you haven't, getting to know. And also, this is a great opportunity to get to know Carl and Dave and myself. We're all here to help, not just to be helped. And what comes around goes around. You know, your reputation is really based on repetition, right? Doing something one time does not make a reputation. But being consistent, like Dave said, showing yourself for who you are over and over again, because people like predictability. You know, people like to know, hey, I'm going to go see this person. I kind of know what I'm going to expect. And some people look forward to seeing people because some people are like elevator buttons. Some take you up, some take you down. And the inspiring people, you know, you could turn off the voice and just look at their presentation, look at their body language, and that inspires you. You know, that's why they say it's never your words, it's your music that people listen to. The words just follow your music. And, you know, if you've got the most important thing to say and you're mumbling it and you're looking away from the person, it's not going to have the impact. You could say gibberish and people start laughing. How many people start laughing because the people next to them are laughing? And if they laugh hard enough, you start laughing, you don't even know what you're laughing at. But it's contagious. And I think that's where inspiration really comes in, is how far does it go? How far does it last? You know, how many people go back to their high school teacher and says, you might not have known this, but you said something one day in class, and I took it to heart and I followed it. And because of that, I am who I am today. And that person gets inspired, you know. And I think the other thing is people want confirmation. You know, a comic tells jokes they think are funny, but until the audience reacts to, they know if it's funny or they know it's the wrong audience. Either way, it repositions yourself to say next time. And I think the idea of complimenting people, you know, rewards those people. How many people know they see something that's really impressive and they don't say anything, right? Oh, I just love that new car you bought. I think you did a great thing in buying it. Or, hey, those shoes are unbelievable. Those shoes have more meaning now. Why? Because someone just told you, hey, I think they're great shoes. And people are missing opportunities when they're not sharing their heartfelt feelings. You know, is I love that. I love that. And you know what? People start thinking about you is what do I like about you? What can I point out? And after a while, you start ratcheting up together. And all of a sudden, you open up to new ideas and to new people. At the same time, you start becoming aware of, hey, every time I'm with this person, I feel worse when they leave.
Mm.
And that's not going to encourage me to do it again. And I think people have to earn their stripes. They got to pay their dues. If you want somebody's attention, if you want someone's support, you have to give them a reason to continue to support. And it may be for different reasons. Somebody might be into money. Some people might be into helping with their money. Both get a reward for it. And again, it's back to what Carl said. What's important to one may not be important to the other. And trying to find common ground is harder than finding positive ground.
Mm-hmm.
The common part is easy. Everybody's pretty common. It's how do you get positive? And then how do you make sure that people are having the full opportunity? How many people cut somebody off halfway into what they're saying? I know what you're talking about. And by the way, here's my experience with it. Nobody cared, and that's why on this show, I'll never, ever, and I don't encourage people to say I disagree. No one asks anybody, right? Someone has something to say, good or bad, right or wrong, as long as it's not anything that's harmful. It's easier to say, well, here's my take on it, right? Because what happens before you is going to happen in front of you, right? You take someone down in front of they say criticize in private, support in public. Nobody wants to be embarrassed. Nobody wants to be put down in front of people. And it's a matter of understanding, and the value you have of that person diminishes quite rapidly. Or, hey, you never said that to me until I was with people, or something like that. I mean, if we had an issue, why didn't you bring it up instead of, surprise me like that? And being able to disassociate is as valuable as association. You're the factor of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Whatever they're doing, you're going to be doing. Is that who you want to be? Where are they going? How are they going to get there? Can they help you? Can you help them? And most people, it's easier not to do anything. Just put it in neutral or pause and let time or events take their place. Carl?
I think everything you mentioned resonates, of course. And it brings me back to what we were talking about earlier about where did we receive inspiration? I mean, when you were both speaking, I was thinking about which teacher, and obviously parents and grandparents provide inspiration in the values that they provide us and the role modeling that they give us. So that's a given, the family, and what we've accepted, what we're open to continue to do. And I was thinking that my trajectory was set by a teacher that I had in college who inspired me into a totally different area that I never even imagined. I didn't even know it existed. And that was organizational psychology, or back then it was called personnel psychology. And I didn't know about it. I was in a totally different trajectory for my studies. And then as soon as I found that out, I just changed course. And that's been my entire career. And she was inspirational. So I don't know if she knows that. So Dr. Nora Rubinstein, you were inspirational. Just to let you know, thank you for inspiring me to go into this this realm, this area that I didn't even know existed. And there are so many other people, and we talked mostly about people, of course. And I think I want to go back to what we were speaking about earlier, where it can be music, it could be poetry, it could be nature, it could be anything can be inspiring. You can take inspiration from anything as long as you're open to it, as long as you are not fixated and just doing the same thing and the same patterns over and over and over again. As long as you are really open to not only receiving that inspiration, but also applying it to what's going to make sense for you in your aspirations and goal achievement, and integrating it into your practice. Not forgetting to integrate it into your practice, not getting caught up in all those patterns and fixations, so that you can actually do something with that inspiration and achieve those greater goals that you've always wanted to.
Wonderfully put. Dave? Looks like we're
Yeah.
coming up on top of hour.
Yeah, it's gone by really quick because we've had such great things to say, I think. And I think go back a little bit to the word goal. And if we want to be inspired, we have to have goals. And what I encourage people to do is to write those things down, physically write them down. Don't type them out. Don't verbalize them alone, but write them down and have your why. Why am I doing these things? What is it I'm trying to achieve? And there's a direct connection between our brain and our hand and the pen or pencil, whatever the writing instrument, to seeing it, thinking it, acting it, seeing it again, and going, okay, this is my goal. This is what I'm going to do. And it opens us to be inspired, to move towards those goals. And then, as we've said many times, is the world gets in our way, things happen. Well, if I have a goal, I'm going to be stationed on that goal, focused. And if there's a distraction, I've got to recognize you've taken me away from my goal. I'm going to come back on track. I'm going to get distracted again, I know, but I've always got this goal. And I'm open to inspiration that may shift the whole goal a little bit, but I'm still I'm trying to get to some point. The reason I'm saying it that way too is if I don't have a direction to go in or an aim point to shoot for, I'll always miss because I don't know where I'm going. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have some point where you want to get to. It's not going to be a direct route, but the goal is there, and it inspires us it opens us up to inspiration to broaden the spectrum a little bit of where we want to go, up or down or left or right, in a three-dimensional world. So why not be open to inspiration? And as you go through your path, you will learn more things, become that quote expert, so that you can share your lessons and inspire somebody behind you who may have a similar goal in that realm of where you want to go. And that's very important, is passing it on. Again, I can give inspiration and get inspiration from the same people, the same community, and move along life and be happier in the end. But if I haven't written it down, I don't think I'm going to get where I'm going to go, because I'm at the mercy of a whim, an emotion that someone can put me in, or I can put myself in, and lose track of where it is I want to go in that journey, this journey called life.
Yeah, that is so important. I remember Brian Tracy said that the first of every year, he would write down 10 goals on a piece of paper, put it in a drawer, and wait till the end of the year to open it. And he was surprised to find that 7 out of those 10 things he accomplished. And a lot of it was because he wrote it down. And, you know, what writing it down does is commitment. I took the time to write this down because it was important, and I'm aware of it now. And that's where most people fail, is they're just not aware. Or they think, do a little today, do a little tomorrow, and pretty soon they're scattershot all over the place, as opposed to being laser focused and really prioritizing. What do you need now? What you needed 5 years ago probably won't serve you today, and it shouldn't, because you should have evolved somewhat. And then also knowing little things done right compound. Too many people shoot for the bleachers, and instead of just getting on base, right? And taking little victories and building on it, because ultimately confidence goes a long way. When you go into anything with a lot of confidence, with a lot of positive feelings, it's going to be hard to get dissuaded. But if you're kind of sheepish and you go in and you kind of got your hand out looking for something, you're going to probably get dismissed very easily, because people lose respect for you. You know, and another part is, what are you willing to do? How many people come to other people, I got a problem, I need some help. Well, what have you done to help yourself? Well, I came to you. Well, I'm not the first place you got to go to. You know, I'm the place after you got it all figured out. It's like getting a loan from a bank. You got to do your paperwork, and you got to run through what you're trying to do, instead of having me be the person who launches you. So I'll give Carl last words. What's your thoughts? It's been a fast hour, but a very, very important, valuable one.
I never imagined speaking about inspiration and dissecting it the way that we have. And I love all the connections. And I think connections are really huge. And I think we mentioned this earlier. Connection is a huge part of inspiration, of connecting to ourselves authentically and also connecting to other people, right? And having them feel that connection. So that's when that inspiration is going to happen. So yeah, and openness. Openness is huge. We need to be open to the concept of being inspired. So those are my big takeaways. And thank you for the wonderful conversation.
Been a pleasure. Dave, I'll let you have the last. You're good?
I was just going to say thank you to Carl for joining us. It was great to have him, and
my pleasure.
It's always good to be open to new thoughts and other people's perspectives. So I'm grateful that you were able to be here today.
Well, that's
great to meet you.
I couldn't be happier. We also have a new person who's been watching. I don't know what that all means, but it's Beth. And then we've got John Chasen. Thank you guys. So rich. Appreciate it. And, that's the benefit is everything we say has bigger meaning and value because it's exposed to much larger audiences. 80% of the people who watch never comment, so usually have 30, 40 people and either they're engrossed in what we're saying and don't want to, or a lot of people feel they're imposing or whatever. And that's good because what's good for you is good for everybody around you. And being yourself and being true to yourself goes a long way. And you can inspire yourself like we talked about before. Why not? When it comes to you, great. When it doesn't come to you, create it. Create the atmosphere and the environment that allows for more inspiration. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for their time today and their interest. Come back a week from now. Next week, we're going to have Charles Caldwell here from Hong Kong. He's got to stay up till I think 12 in the morning to make the show. And he's the head of the largest English-speaking school system in Hong Kong, 32,000 kids, does fabulous work and was a technology entrepreneur before that, which allowed him to move to Hong Kong and do all the wonderful things he's doing. So thank you, Dave. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, audience. Go out and have an inspiring day.